I think generally speaking, you can't be as risk aggressive when you have kids. When you're younger, look, if you screw up here, you're likable enough that you can probably find couches to live on for 2 years if you needed to. If you just got in over your skis, you could find a way to dance. When you're young, you can dance between the raindrops. I lived in New York. I had two roommates. When I started my business, my girlfriend paid our rent, and because I didn't have kids or dogs. There's just a certain level of responsibility and things you got to take care of as you get older. When you get a little bit older, don't go all in on anything. If you're going to start a business, use other people's capital, ring fence it. Don't get seduced into the worst thing that can happen in your 30s and 40s is you start a business and you start failing slowly. You just don't know. The worst type of business is one that gives you just enough green signals that you keep investing more time and more money. Like red envelope, that's what people know me for. That's the worst thing that can happen to somebody because it failed slowly. It failed over 11 years. I started an e-commerce incubator in New York backed by Goldman Sachs, Maveron, JP Morgan. It was out of business in 8 months because of the dot-com meltdown. That's a blessing. The best thing that can happen is success. The second best thing is fast failure. The worst thing that can happen to you is slow failure. You can't have slow failure in your 30s and 40s. So you want to make sure that if you go in on something, you ring fence it. I'm leaving my job. I'm going to try and start my own business. I'm going to spend 2 years doing it, a certain amount of capital, no more than maybe 10, 20% of my capital, because hitting a wall and failing at 50 is much more devastating than hitting a wall or failing at 25 or 30. You can get up again. You're fine. You can press the restart button a bunch of times. So you want to take advantage of that in your 20s and 30s and workshop a bunch of things. I'm not saying hop around. I'm not saying, oh, I don't love this, it's not my passion. No, that probably means it's just work. But if you're not making progress, if you're not making money, if you're not getting roles in films, if everything's just really hard, you're in a position at that age to say, you know what? I'm going to leave Milan and move to Munich, or I'm going to Dubai. You have flexibility when you're young. You have geographic flexibility. Lean into your advantage. It's a heck of a lot easier right now to make money in Dubai than it is in Caracas, right? You'd rather be good in a great economy than outstanding in a mediocre economy. You have geographic flexibility. Lean into your advantages, your flexibility, your ability to recover, your ability to workshop.
What would you do if one of your sons said to you, how many sons have you got now?
I got 2.
You got 2 sons?
That I know of.
That you know of. One of your sons comes to you and says, Dad, I would like to be I've read your book, all of your books, and I think they're great, but Dad, I would love to be a professional actor. Yep. And then your other son came to you and said, I want to be a musician.
I don't want to crush anybody's dreams. Go for it. I'll be supportive. But this industry, let's just look at the economics. Musician and acting has a 99% unemployment rate. So you got to be in the 1%. And I want you to set up benchmarks for determining what it means to be in the top 1%. The most talented actors in the world are in a union called SAG-AFTRA. And by the way, it's not easy to get your union card. You got to be in a Broadway play. You got to be recognized. That's a big moment. It's like getting your PGA Golf Tour card, right? You get your SAG-AFTRA card. It means you're one of the 180,000 most talented creatives in the world. Last year, 83% of them didn't have health insurance because they didn't make more than $23,000. So you not only need to be in the top 17% just to have health insurance, you probably need to be in the top 10%, realistically the top 1%. I know a lot of working actors. If I said, this is the guy from this show, you'd be like, oh my God, that guy's amazing. He's not making a lot of money. I mean, everybody talks about Tom Cruise. The majority of working actors, you would say, oh, I know that woman, I know that man, they're great. They make an okay living. If they had achieved that level of excellence in almost any other industry, they'd own a house and a second house in Ibiza. So if you want to be an athlete, an actor, a model, an artist, open a restaurant, open a nightclub, have a jewelry line, be a fashion designer, I don't want to crush anyone's dreams, but let's have a sober conversation that if you aren't getting bright green lights that you're in the top 1% really quickly, and we put some guardrails on it, we're going to do this for 2 years, 3 years, can't pay your rent in 2 or 3 years, Dad's going to stop paying your rent at some point, or maybe I'll continue to pay your rent, but I need you to start workshopping another career. Because here's the thing, young people oftentimes mistake their hobbies for their passions. And what I would suggest is, and what I can guarantee you, is being successful at anything, passion comes from mastery. Mastery comes from being a ninja at something. I'm renovating a house, and there's this guy installing our soapstone who's the soapstone guy. He's an Iraqi immigrant, dropped out of high school. He knows everything about soapstone. He can talk to you about the vein in the soapstone and which quarries. And he makes, I've been very open with him. I'm talking about my book. He made 1.3 million pounds last year. He's the soapstone guy. I can't imagine when he was a kid, he and I bonded over football. I would bet, I don't know this, I would bet he dreamt of being a football star and playing for Iraq in the World Cup at some point. I doubt at the age of 17, he thought, I'm hoping in 15 years I'm installing soapstone and renovations for American douchebags in Marylebone. I can't imagine that was his dream, right? But here's the thing, he has an amazing life. He takes care of his kids. He takes care of his parents. He gets to take amazing vacations with his wife, which makes him passionate about soapstone. So yeah, go be a fashion designer. But let's be honest, if you're not making enough money to pay your rent within 2 years, and you're not making enough money to, say, form a family in 5 years, we're going to workshop something else.